Hi, all great to have you here. And today it's my pleasure to have a chat with Paul Radich, QC. Hey, Paul,
Good,
nice to
Stephen.
see you.
Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Good. Hey, look, thank you for your time. As we discussed previously, just before we came on, this is a really important series for us. And to have yourself just give your thoughts around, where you have seen law come from and where it's going. It'd be great insights for us to have.
Yeah, really happy to share some of the experiences I've had and talk about the current market.
Oh, great. Look, it's been an interesting year, hasn't it? We've had COVID thrown on. I'm sure many of us couldn't even imagine what it'd be like. But of course, pre-COVID, law was changing and there was lots of different factors, technology, globalization, a whole lot of things that were coming to the mix anyway. So, Paul,
Yeah.
your thoughts about the legal profession? What are your feelings over the next few years?
Sure. Well, look, I come from a background of having spent most of my working life in large firms, but I've had the last nearly 10 years at the independent bar. So I sort of have a bunch of perspectives on it, I think, and talking to colleagues still within firms. It is a changing market, as you say. It was changing already. This year's events have caused it to splinter into some slightly different directions, I think. And probably the most immediate thing is to think about that a little bit, and then talk about the changes that were happening anyway, probably. But certainly, what the events of this year have caused, of course, is people aren't leaving firms because they can't go anywhere. So the people that would normally have travelled overseas, almost invariably, you would find 90% or more of people within firms at an intermediate or pre-intermediate stage would go and do some OE of some sort. Not to say everyone had to, but most did. And so that, of course, meant that the ongoing take at different levels was constant. At the moment, that's paused. The interesting thing is it's having some effect on the market, but not the sort of effect you would think. You would think, well, X number in, out rather, X number in, and therefore if the outs stop, the ins don't. But a number of the firms, and certainly, and I'll talk about the bar a little bit too, are looking through it. That they're looking for looking at a longer term horizon, and they're saying to themselves, well, look, when this comes off, when we're able to travel freely again, there's going to be quite a bottleneck of people who have been wanting to go who are going to. So unless we get our numbers right now, even if it means we've got a few too many, in terms of their normal take at this stage, we need to be making provision for the future, 18 months, 2 years' time. And so I think the wise firms, those who are really looking deeply at the horizon, are doing that. There are some who have unfortunately adopted more of a retrenchment policy, and there are some medium-sized firms who this is affecting, and so payroll is an important part. But look, I think the thing about it is that there should not be concern on the part of people looking to come into the market in the next couple of years. Yes, there is a bit of a drop in recruitment at some of the firms, but there are probably proactive ways that one can look at that. And when you factor into that some of the other points you mentioned about the market, some of the features of the market anyway, which are increasing technologies. But again, I find they're not taking jobs away. That they're making jobs different. The way we go about research is a bit different. But it also means court proceedings, and at the bar, that's virtually all I do, are more complex because we're dealing with events past and disputes around those events. There are so many documents that are created as a result of that disclosure processes are vast. Research is deeper. The documents we file are longer. And so as a result of that, the use of technology to capture all those things is significant, but it doesn't replace the need for people to drive it. And so, I don't find it a big change there. In fact, more hands-on deck, the better for dinosaurs like me who are grappling with it, but haven't come close to mastering it.
Great. Hey, look, really great commentary there. So you've touched on a couple of them. So overall, then, for law, what do you feel some of the challenges are, to continue that evolution?
Yeah. Um, Look, I think that the challenges are for people in recruitment positions, whether it be firms, government, commercial organisations, and I use that phrase again, to look through it, to see beyond it, and to be confident. But when I step back a little bit and say, well, what about from a student's point of view, someone who's looking to get into the market? It really is for me a little bit of back to the future, and I say that because in times past there was no formal recruitment within firms or other public sector organisations. It just didn't happen. And when I say times past, I'm really going back to the 80s here, to be honest, because formal recruitment processes started in the early 90s, and I had an active role in that. But pre that, what people would do was be proactive, and if I've got anything that I can probably usefully pass on to people at that stage is this, and I mean this really sincerely: be really proactive, promote yourself. Don't expect that it will be necessarily possible. Hopefully it will, but don't expect it will necessarily be possible to be able to climb in smoothly through a recruitment process and then have a career set out. Look really broadly. So look to the firms, promote yourself, write something about yourself. Look at smaller firms, look at medium-sized firms, look at firms in provinces. Again, at the bar, when we do court work, we really look for people who have had advocacy experience. And it may be that you end up in Dargaville, for example, in a small firm doing a mix of interesting court work and some civil work. And they're fabulous skills to take on board in the big city in one of the firms. So look broadly, write a really nice letter about yourself, contact people proactively. The Chambers Junior that we have came from out of the blue like that. I literally had an email, a really nicely worded email from him, finishing up a degree, and I thought, well, good on him for making touch. I'll go and have a coffee, even though I didn't think there was a prospect, and such a great guy that he's still here. That was 4 years ago. So be really proactive.
Yeah. Great advice. So some good advice for those starting. The beauty of Zoom, I'm going to get a clock chiming in the background.
Yes.
Great advice. So what advice would you give also, Paul, for those practitioners who have been around a while, seeing all the changes and perhaps feeling how they're feeling? Any advice for sort of that cohort?
Yeah. Again, I think it's if you're feeling a bit challenged by the environment, if for example work has been affected as a result of it, I think, again, think proactively. It's very easy for us to be, find ourselves on our own tracks, whether it's in a firm, whether you're at the bar. And I think, look proactively. Say to yourself, what would really interest me in this profession? Because there's just so much to offer. Sound a bit evangelical, but after all these years, I love it still, and it's got so much to offer. And there are in-house roles, there are commercial roles. The degree is fabulous, not just for practicing law, but for being able to provide logical commercial input into organisations. So again, think proactively, write proactively, and look at changing tracks if need be, because no matter what you think, you're going to be massively valuable to someone somewhere. Yeah.
Look, absolutely. I mean, you've mentioned some great opportunities in there as well.
Yeah.
So for you, what are your personal hopes if you were sort of reflecting on where you would like to see law and how law works from a community basis as well as a society basis as well as a professional basis? What would your hopes be?
Look, I think that one of the major problems we have at the moment is access to justice. It is, and I know that's a phrase that people roll out, but it really is. And I say that with a Bar Association hat on. We've done a lot of work and thinking about this, and I see it in my own practice. And by that I mean people being able to have access to the courts without it costing an absolute fortune. If you can get legal aid, that's good. That's becoming more challenging now, and because from a practitioner's point of view, there has been so much red tape, and many practitioners are no longer willing to put themselves forward. So getting people matched up is hard. And unless at the other end of the spectrum you're very well resourced, or you're a corporate entity or a well resourced individual, you fall into the middle of it's troublesome. So I think just quickly, a couple of things that are really going to help that. One is technology. We found during COVID that, goodness, court hearings can work pretty well through this medium, frankly. Hard for a jury trial, obviously, can't do that. Hard for a case with lots of witnesses, but lots of cases have few witnesses or a legal argument only, significant number, pure submissions, and all you need are the judges or the judge and the lawyers. And you can do it this way. Or if your lawyer isn't in Invercargill and the case is in Whangarei, instead of travelling and having that enormous expense, frankly, for someone, you can just zoom in. So that's one thing. The second thing is lots of initiatives underway at the moment to reduce the rules of court. The rules are really clunky. You've got to file lots of things in writing, lots of work in advance, and it's very time consuming and therefore very expensive. And looking at a whole lot of ways to bring it back to the way for the right sort of case that it used to be, doing things far less in writing up front, actually just enabling people to go into the courtroom and have their day. So hopefully watch this space, because there are going to be some big improvements in that area, and quite a lot of good pro bono initiatives with a pro bono clearinghouse coming through the community law centres. Yeah. So hopefully we'll improve.
Good to hear. Good to hear. And on a personal level, how do you relax yourself? Busy role, lots of responsibility. How do you keep fresh and still enthusiastic? After a few years.
Yeah, it is a few years. You can see that, can't you? Look, the key is have things out of law that really push your buttons. I mean, law's great, but it can if you let it can dominate everything you do. So don't do that. I mean, for my part, I'm actively involved in a community radio station and do a lot of sort of shows that are completely unrelated to law, and I run a classic old car that keeps me out of mischief. It's like putting money you don't have into a burning furnace to keep it running. But just lovely to have some things where you can put your mind into a different place, I think, and chat to other people.
Totally. Hey, Paul, thank you. It's been a real joy. I really am really heartened by your enthusiasm and passion, and some really great insights. So please keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Yes, lovely to talk to you, Stephen.
You too. Thank you. That's Paul and I signing off.